Okay, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani. Elections all through the weekend, and we're not even done yet because, as you know, the collating of results from Bayelsa State will resume from 12 noon. Okay, but, you know, the off-cycle elections that we've had in Bayelsa, in Kogi, and in Imo State is largely done, and our guest this morning is Mr. Solomon Adoga. Solomon is Senior Programs Officer at the Transition Monitoring Group. Transition Monitoring Group, as you know, is a citizen election observation coalition that independently verifies election results. A fine morning to you, Solomon.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, great. Okay, so give me your overview. Actually, I know it before, and anybody who cares to have checked would have seen that you've given the exercise largely a pass mark, saying that it is in conformity with ethical conduct, generally speaking. Was that correct there?
Oh yes. So you are basically referring to, our preliminary report, which we issued in the middle of the process on Saturday, and largely those were drawn from our observations from the field, and we observed at that hour where we issued that statement, basically large, conformity with the electoral process. We basically observed improvements, from the 2023 election, speaking with regards to even the conduct of INEC, where we saw improvements in logistic deployment. Most polling units reported very, early commencement of voting procedures, and very encouraging to see. In some places, the officials and election materials were already on ground even before 7:30. Those are very encouraging things to see, and we also saw great functionality of the beavers in most of the places, though a pocket of incidences of malfunction here and there, which we also observed were later corrected. So voting also went smoothly in terms of voters, conducting themselves in order. But at that hour, we also noted a huge level of voter apathy, particularly in states like Imo and Bayelsa. But we were also not happy to see some of the issues that later emanated. And we clearly stated in our preliminary report that we hoped that, we will be able to sustain that momentum that we had from the beginning of the election throughout the day. We are not oblivious of the fact that election come through phases, and we know that the problems that are associated with those phases of elections can be quite different. So we were not oblivious of that fact, and we want that stakeholders should play their roles to ensure that, especially the vote management process, should be transparent, so that it does not quickly spiral to disorder. And it was unfortunate to see that we saw that happening in some of the areas across the 3 states.
Isolated incidents of violence also occurred, but I suppose going back to that report, that preliminary report that you had said, you'd also sort of commended the security agencies, INEC itself and the security agencies, in conducting themselves appropriately. There were isolated incidents, but you felt that it had been adequately taken care of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yes. So if we take our minds back, it's easy to recall that, I mean, the build-up to the off-cycle elections in those three states, indicated potential for violence, across the three states. And it's not just because of the off-cycle, the 2023 off-cycle election. There's also a bit of history behind that, So if you look at violence analysis across states of the Federation, these three states have history of electoral violence. So, we were very cautious of that fact. And, the pre-election environment also indicated that perhaps we will have, security situations to deal with. So that was the reason why we were quick to commend the actions of the security agencies and the conduct of INEC, because these both stakeholders, their actions can also quickly cross over. What INEC does and how INEC conducts itself can quickly become a security situation for the security agencies to handle. And how the security agencies conduct themselves can also make or mar the electoral process. So looking at those pre-election environment, there was no given that we were going to go into the peaceful conduct of those elections at any point in time. But we saw very encouraging level of calm across the three states, from the beginning of the election, and like you say, in large part of the areas of the three states, So we saw that peace, and with pockets of incidences of violence here and there, which we also saw the security agencies, rose to the occasion. So it was on that basis that we felt that the security agencies had done, commendably well, because in building up to the elections, the actions of the political actors did not show that, they were going to restrain from perpetrating violence. But maybe they did, and it was just, the proactiveness of the security agencies that largely put, some of those things into check. And it was as a result of this that we were able to have, citizens vote peacefully in orderly manner. But one of the way that, this fear also affected the election, where we saw earlier on, voter apathy across, the three states. So if you have a tense security or environment in an election, then you can be rest assured that citizens are not going to want to, put their lives on the line. And this can be one of the reasons, this can be said to be one of the reasons why, voters largely stayed away. And a number of factors, actually, but generally, we thought and we agreed that, the security agencies and INEC, conducted themselves very well, if not for, the pocket of incidences here and there that we can always refer to.
Great. And this particularly, the point you made just now, will no doubt refer to the Kogi State case, reported pre-filled election result sheets, the statement being made in a timeous fashion, and even though there was apprehension, at the end of the day, it wasn't as important. Not that any aspect of that is to be, condoned, but it wasn't important in the overall scheme of things, because they had thought that elections might be suspended in certain places, but it wasn't necessary once INEC had taken it. So these are the kind of things you mean, because there was a very timely response, even though people were, anxious for more information. What is INEC going to do when they finally came up with it? Your assessment is that it was handled professionally.
Yes, very commendably, INEC responded to that, very swiftly. And there's nothing more that they could have done at that point, but to assure that they were going to investigate that, But also disappointingly, we because I watched and listened to the wreck of Kogi State, denying that incident, saying that he had not gotten any report to that instance, and that if there's any of such a report from the civil society quarter, that the civil society were not, electoral umpire. That's rather unfortunate. And this was made while, INEC had already, confirmed a report of such and even assured that they were going to investigate that. So we commend INEC for that swift response, but it does not take away the apprehension from voters, because the questions that have been put across is that, okay, yes, that has been exposed, and you are going to investigate that. Are you going to also investigate other areas to ensure that such actions did not actually get to scale through? So those are very germane questions. And while INEC, had, done its tabulation and, seen that the results from that area was not significantly going to affect the result, but then those apprehensions still continue to exist in the minds of citizens. And what is important here is we are trying to build citizens' trust from where we are coming from. So every action is important to sort of convince citizens that we are on top of this situation. And we hope sincerely that INEC will fully conduct that investigation and, punish as much as possible, the culprits that will be found. That will go a long way to maybe not just assuaging the minds of the political actors that would have felt offended, but also boost our citizens' confidence, not just on INEC, but on the electoral process in general.
Okay. One moment. Let me bring in Reverend Dominic, who has called in. A fine morning to you, Reverend.
Good morning, Chief Yori. You are
morning.
looking wonderful today.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Good morning to your guest.
Yes. Solomon Adoga.
Let me express my concern over this election. Let me talk about the state which I monitor.
Good morning.
100%.
Good morning.
My state, Imo State. Yori, just a year ago, there was election in Ekiti. There was election in Osho. And the use of beavers and ROF was well, used. And people applauded INEC for Ekiti and Osho. But after the 2023 election, it's like we have gone back to the issue we have in 2007, where people now write results. I come from Imo State, where we call it Bise. I come from Bise. Let me give it. There is 2 local governments. They said the governor of Imo State won 27, they go 27 local governments. It's laughable. I came from Bise. There's sentiment in Mbise, 2 local governments, every Mbise, where I come from, and Abo. Abo is where the governor he defeated in Supreme Court came from. There's no way Hope Uzodinma will win in these 2 local governments, Abo and Ezivite. But he won all. The time of writing results has come back again. And if you don't agree with me, look at Kogi State. Kogi State, there was a result brought in before 789 in the morning to start the election, which means people follow that result.
Wait, let me understand you properly, Reverend Dominic. Okay. Are you contesting INEC's declared figures?
If I hear you clearly, you are saying if I'm comparing INEC of this time to 1907 INEC. If I had to clear.
You said you want to speak specifically about Imo State. And yes. Imo State, according to INEC, it was APC declared it for the governor and APC, 540,000 votes. 540,308 votes. Yes. Are you contesting that INEC authenticated and declared figure?
Yes, sir. This one giving you 2 local governments. That is mission impossible for Uzodinma to win. One is the local government in Mbise, another one is Abo local government in Mbise. There's no way Hope Uzodinma could have won in that 2 local governments. I'm not contesting, I'm contesting where I know For INEC to say that Hope won in 27 local governments, that's laughable. Let me use the word laughable. What I'm trying to say, I've gone back to the era of writing reports in our bedroom. But before 2000, people have trusted beavers and trusted IRF. In Imo State, the result in IRF is the result it's what I'm trying to say. The result, the one in the IRF is different. We are.
All right. Well. Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. He's Solomon. What do you think? He says, INEC is. Imo is his state, and he is complaining about aspects of it. And indeed, you heard him. Actually, I don't know that there's anything you can say to that. That's his own observation.
Yes, I did. And I would not say that the...
You yourselves are observers.
Okay, I would not even think that the Reverend is... Yes, so I would not think that the Reverend is alone in his thoughts, and citizens have a right to these thoughts based on, their perception, based on what they see, If they have been exposed clearly that there's an incidence of, result writing somewhere, then people are going to be apprehensive that this would have happened in most areas. So the people of Imo can feel that this governor came forth in the last election, but by some, technicalities, happened to win at the court. And so how is it now that he has garnered the momentum to win all 27 LGAs? For me, this feels like local government election. It is at local government election level that we see this kind of results. And it is not expected that we go down that route, because even at this moment, we are thinking of how to better those local government elections that we conduct, where the party at the helm of affairs clears all the local government areas. This is basically what has happened in Imo State. And you cannot argue so much with the people who are on ground, to say your perception is wrong or your perception is right. But like you said, at the end of the day, INEC has done its computation based on what is in its result sheet. So it is now up to, unfortunately, which is something that we must talk about, because most of these elections now will still go the round of judicial route, because where there's no candidate that has where results have already been declared in Kogi and Imo State, for instance. You have not seen any candidate who has come out, to congratulate or to accept the results. So it shows that we are going to go the route of that long judicial process again, and then it means that perhaps INEC are conducting elections, but it is the judiciary who decide, who wins the election at the end of the day. And we don't think that this is a mandate for the judiciary, So, like I said, the Reverend is not alone in his thought, but then does he have the evidence to say results were written? I think it is only INEC that will be able to do that when he conducts proper investigation.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. George. Thank you for holding on since you got in. Go right ahead now, please.
Good morning, Uncle Yori, and good morning to your guest.
Yes, thank you.
Uncle Yori, I thought my friend Reverend Dominic said he is a member of the APC. So why is he, I'm just wondering why he is always attacking his own party. He has to be careful what he says so that his party will not discipline him in their meetings if he does attend their meetings. Because for you to come out and say that results were written, do you have evidence to prove that? If results were written for the campaigns that we saw, There was no nook and cranny in Imo State that Uzodinma did not go to. I was watching your video clips that he was, during the time of the campaign, he was everywhere. You could see the crowd he was pulling. I've been monitoring what he does in Imo State, especially this ICT crash program for youth, where he picked people from all the local governments. Are the Imo people so blind that they cannot see what is being done to them? We have to be careful about what we say in public. So it is impossible for a governor to win all local governments, supposing he appealed to them in his campaigns and in his performance. It's possible. So, by the way, Uncle Yori, I hope Ajero will now rest since he did not win in Imo State.
All right, then. Well, thank you very much for calling in, Mr. George. Well, Reverend Dominic called it the way he saw it. Solomon, our guest, has, said that for all that anybody knows, he might not be a solitary voice. And then he also spoke about one of the things we've not seen in this election, this off-cycle election, which is congratulatory messages from, co-contestants. We haven't seen any of that, really. And so if this, Solomon was wondering there, was this going to go the way of elections in Nigeria, where the exercise on the field is just half of it, the other half is the judicial system. But, okay, as we are, considering this, we're sort of looking at an overview of it. There was the point about initial apathy, even in this very Imo. And then in that very Imo, again, let it be said, there's no way you sweep it under the carpet. There was reported to be the use of cash, which is an absolute no-no. Although one must put it in context, I think one of your earlier reports too, Solomon, had said that the figure was anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000, and then things like clothes, maybe things like snacks and feeding. But still, no matter how slight, it still was totally out of order, wasn't it? But this might have had an effect in bringing people out, perhaps, because the initial take-up was said to be slow. Apathy, it was called. But then it got, towards the afternoon, it sort of got a lot livelier.
Yes, absolutely. When we did our preliminary reports, although cases of vote trading were already trickling in at the time, and like we said in our report, we observed that in most areas votes were started trading at 5,000 naira, and then it became like the party primaries where it is basically an issue of who the highest bidder carries the day. And then, they began to up the amount up until 30,000, when we issued that report. But on the same day, I was also on a radio program, and we also got live reports from, observers on the field, and we were already reporting that in some places, those amounts had even scaled beyond 30,000 to 40,000 naira to 50,000 naira. And some were also accompanied by gift materials, or so to say, wrappers, and in some places even bread, Like you said, vote trading is not what we want to see. Yes, politicians want to win elections sometimes at all costs, but we must not dehumanize ourselves. Vote trading is very dehumanizing. It's looking at your fellow citizen and saying to them because I am richer than you,
sorry to interrupt you,
let
Solomon.
me buy your conscience, let me buy your rights.
There's a delay, so Solomon can't hear me immediately. So sorry about that. I was just apologizing for interrupting you, but Mukhtar in Kano has come on the line, and I didn't want us to lose him. Good morning to you, Mukhtar. In spite of my best efforts, I still lost him. I'm so sorry about that, Mukhtar. apparently I didn't get to you early enough, but if I did get to you, perhaps we would have lost it just the same. Mukhtar, see if you can call in again. And so I can now return to you, Solomon, because you were speaking about this matter, that after an initial apathy and slowness to come out, then because of this undesirous, effect of money, gifts, and that kind of a thing, upping the ante. So, well, yeah, I guess you've said all that needs to, that can be said about that. It did happen. The scale of it, well, it doesn't matter the scale. There's not supposed to be any of it at all. And so that's where it bears mention, doesn't it? Then the other thing that I think we can also talk about in terms of preparing for this election was that, and I got this from Jake Ekpele as well, who, as you know, has an NGO, well, you might know, has an NGO for people living with disabilities. Ramps, some of these devices that would have made life a lot simpler for people with disability who wanted to vote. And this is something that Jake Ekpele champions in his NGO. You had also noted in your earlier report too that there weren't as many of this as one would have desired.
So yes, Jake, of course, is a mentor, and huge credit to the work that he's doing around improving participation of people with disability in governance, and not just in elections, but in governance generally. So you can understand that they would have deployed very extensively, covering specifically people with disabilities participation in this election. So his reports will be, very hugely on the roots of evidence. But not to take anything away from that, we, quite commendably to INEC observed huge assistance to people with disability. This was largely reported from a vast number of observers on the field, and not just providing aid materials, to guide people with disability to cast their vote with ease, but also giving those preferences to them so you don't have to queue and it's not just to people with disability, so the aged, pregnant women, nursing mothers. We got a report of those kind of preferences from officials of INEC, and we must commend that. So if there are more extensive coverage on the issue and pockets of incidences where maybe INEC did not do too well out there, and especially from the foundation, this is one that must be taken very seriously by the commission. But largely, INEC must be commended for improving largely in this area, because in the end, you don't want to leave people behind.
Indeed.